and that is that my name shows up until I click on somebody's chat. So I don't know how to fix that or if there's a way to fix that, but there it is. Today, I decided to talk about democracy. Not that I know it's not the easiest subject to really discuss, but that's what I wanted to talk about today. Partly because when I watched the movie 1776 and Troy and Netter's streams on Monday or whenever we watched those, it really had an impact on me. Sometimes we forget what the Founding Fathers did, how they did it, why they did it. And I think it was good to be reminded of that. So I will stop the music. Yeah, everybody's going live right now. I realize that there's probably better streams you could go to, but here we are. So, democracy, we hear a lot about it anymore. If you talk to one side, the other side's a threat to democracy, and the other side will have absolutely no idea how they could possibly be a threat to democracy, but the other side knows. And then if you look at the other side's analysis, it often ends up being, 40 or 50% lies or exaggerations. And you really don't know what to think or say. So because of that, I respectfully am asking people, let's not talk about any individuals in this particular stream. I don't mean to control what people say, but I probably won't respond to Biden did this or Trump did that, because that's not my point right now. I'm just trying to examine the actual thing. If you see here as my avatar, I have the anacyclosis cycle, which is basically anarchy leads to monarchy, leads to tyranny, leads to an aristocracy, leads to oligarchy, leads to democracy, leads to an ochlocracy, which leads to anarchy again, and on it goes. And Matt Cheatwood, that is true. Every one of the Founding Fathers was a treasonous, armed insurrectionist, at least by the modern definition. And Enigma Severus makes a good point as well. If you lose, and that's the truth. I love that you guys. I know at least I think both of you watched 1776. I'm not sure, Matt. You may have gone to bed because you do work pretty hard. So anyway, I can't remember. But that is my inspiration, but that will not be what I'm drawing my sources from. At the risk of being overly simplistic, I will just share what Britannica says about what democracy is and basically get through the basics. Then I'll talk about anacyclosis. If we have the time and patience, I may read Federalist number 10. And then I have a video to share that I think is salient. It's the only individual that I'm going to be mentioning as far as a modern politician in this stream. I won't ding you if you do mention someone, but I probably also won't respond, mainly because I just don't want to get off track. So, democracy. We hear a lot about it. We hear that the other side, doesn't matter who you talk to, the other side is a threat to democracy. Well, what is it? Is it a good thing? And how do we, how is it being threatened? I won't deal with the answer to the question in this stream because frankly, it'll probably be all I can do just to get through what I've just discussed. Hello, JPRPH1. You are one of the most supported people I know. Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm very pleased to see everybody. So, probably all of you already know, I'm blessed with an intelligent group of people who follow me. But essentially, democracy is simply the rule by the people. The term is derived from the Greek demokratia, which was coined from demos, the people, and kratos, rule, in the middle of the 5th century, to denote the political systems then existing in some Greek city-states, namely Athens. If government is of or by the people, a popular government is to be established, at least 5 fundamental questions must be confronted at the outset, and 2 more are almost certain to be posed if the democracy continues to last for long. What is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established? A town, a country, a business, all of them? I know that for a long time it was believed that anything much past a city was virtually impossible to rule by a democracy. Hey, Mikey Susie 4, yes. And I don't mean to ignore the comment out of rudeness, Putin's just out of, I'm going to do what I frickin' said. So it is good to see you. I'm going to be doing, even though I'm talking politics, I'm going to be kind of borrowing your own rule in that I won't ding anybody, I won't get onto anybody, but I'm not really meaning to talk about anything as far as any modern politician. So at all either. Okay. I need to silence that if that's going to be going in the background. Given an appropriate association, who among its members should enjoy full citizenship? Assuming a proper association, how are the citizens to govern? What political organizations or institutions will they need? When citizens are divided on an issue, as we are on all kinds of issues right now, whose view should prevail, and in what circumstances? Should the majority always prevail, or should minorities sometimes be empowered to block or overcome majority rule? And yes, Putin's cat, the obvious point is just because one good person was a savior, was a handicap, had a gun, blew up stuff, doesn't equate to all people that do the same. Not wrong. Not wrong. Okay. If a majority is ordinarily to prevail, what is to constitute a proper majority? Is it a majority of all citizens, of all voters, of all of the people? The preceding questions presuppose an adequate answer to a 6th and even more important question: why should the people rule? Is democracy really better than aristocracy or monarchy? Perhaps, as Plato argues in the Republic, the best government would be led by a minority of the most highly qualified persons, an aristocracy of philosopher kings. No association could maintain a democratic government for very long if a majority of the government believed that some other form of government were better. Thus, a minimum condition for the continued existence of a democracy is that a substantial portion of both the demos, basically the majority of the government, and the leadership believes that popular government is better than any feasible alternative. What conditions, in addition to this one, favor the continued existence of democracy? What conditions are harmful to it? Why have some democracies managed to endure when through periods of severe crisis, while so many others have collapsed? I probably won't answer all of those questions, but those are all the questions that basically are the foundation of what, what our government's all about. Putin's cat, you would need to first establish a specific person's world outlook, hence the first words of the declaration. Putin's cat, true democracy is not better. There are good examples of countries that have referendum and the empire government is dismissed. Can you imagine if that happened here? Our enemies would love it. It's not a bad point. So, with all of those questions in mind, and again, I'm not going to get too deep into the answers to them. I don't really mean for this to be a long stream, but it may get long depending on how in depth we go with some of these things. But one of the things that I want to share is the concept of anacyclosis, which I had not known anything about until about 2 years ago, and I still am not incredibly well versed in it. But it's I'll just let the website do its own talking. What is anacyclosis? The theory of anacyclosis represents the culmination of ancient Greek political thought on the evolution of political communities. It's a unified theory of political history in that it attempts to explain the evolution and dissolution of all regime types, including democracy. The theory is most clearly and succinctly expressed in the writings of the historian Publius. Sadly, I have not read any of his work, though many aspects of the theory were described by earlier thinkers such as Plato and Aristotle, and I have read some English translations of theirs. Recognized by Machiavelli for its explanatory power, Polybius' model was studied by the founding fathers of the United States and profoundly influenced their vision of the republic they were founding. The word anacyclosis has been variously translated as the cycle of political revolution and the cycle of constitutions. In short, the theory states that the 6 regime archetypes that the Greeks identified and which we still use today, monarchy, tyranny, aristocracy, oligarchy, democracy, and ochlocracy, which they're saying is mob rule. Each represent different stages of one long process of political evolution. There's good reason to think that Polybius and his predecessors arrived at this theory empirically after observing the rise and fall of many hundreds of city-states, most of which cycled through several of the governmental forms mentioned above. Greek political thinkers concluded that these transitions from one form to another were not random. Rather, they seemed to follow simple and recognizable patterns. For example, tyrants were frequently overthrown by groups of aristocrats, while popular revolutions frequently overthrew oligarchies and ushered in democratic rule. Interestingly, the reverse of these trends, aristocracies being overthrown by tyrants or democracies turning into oligarchies, were statistically less likely to occur. Through such observations, Polybius extrapolated the likely complete course of political evolution for an independent state whose life cycle is not cut short by war or disaster. According to our interpretation of his model, the cycle proceeds as follows. Political communities are first ruled by kings. Kingship is eventually corrupted into tyranny. The last tyrant is deposed or forced to share power with an aristocracy. Aristocracy degenerates into an oppressive oligarchy. Occasionally, an independent middle economic stratum emerges. If this middle class is entrenched, democracy emerges. In time, however, a plutocracy emerges, stratifying society between opulent and dependent. The hopes of the dependent masses fuel an intensifying competition among their political patrons, transforming democracy into mob rule, perhaps better described as rule by demagogues. This tournament of demagogues rages among a narrowing field of popular leaders until a single champion arises victorious, dragging political society back to some form of monarchy, thus completing the cycle. And I'm not going to go further as far as the Institute. You can look that up if you like. But that was the old Greek ideal. Just basically the wheel just keeps rolling around until the government either collapses or the society collapses. Mikey Susie 4, at one time, local state governments would be able to set rules and regulations set by their own persons. However, the formation of our lead government branches were necessary to freely lead the state. And that's part one of it. Part two, rules. The branches were necessary to freely lead state rules and consolidate them into a form of constitutional precedence. Whether the democracy works or not, it's still better than socialism, fascism, communism, or a monarchy. And I agree with you. I'm keeping an open mind for the discussion, and I do know that there's some very intelligent people who believe in monarchies or believe in communism. But my tendency is to prefer the Democratic/Republican style of government. Putin's cat. In theory, a U.S. state could attempt communism as long as it doesn't violate the Constitution. Yeah, I mean, in theory, I don't know how that would look or how that would work, but yeah, I mean, in theory, it could be attempted. Whether that's good or not, well, that's a good question. Enigma Severus agrees with Mikey Susie 4 and says the problematic issues inside of every government is always the human being. Not wrong. Not wrong. So, in my vague attempt to find answers, I still lean hardest on the works of the founding fathers, at least as far as I've read them. And I haven't read them intensely deeply, but I have read the Federalist Papers. I've read a few other things. And to me, that is very much my go-to when it comes to government. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't take it as absolute gospel. Like, for example, with C.S. Lewis, who felt, if I understood him correctly, that a limited monarchy was the best government, with kind of a Republican/Democratic influence like the British Parliament. I'm willing to listen to that. I'm not 100% sure that he's wrong, but I still have my own predilections. Any American citizen who wants to is free to live as a communist. Yeah. Matt's fairly certain that communism violates the Constitution, many of the Bill of Rights. Putin's cat says true communism leaves open other states to attack you. In high population countries that are poor, any new government is appealing. The wheel doesn't consider culture. And that's true. Or at least as far as I know. I'm not diving much more deeply into it at this juncture. Mikey Susie 4, humans have human frailties. There will never be a perfect leader. That's just a fact. And Matt Cheatwood says, I think he's saying that when communism violates the Constitution, or he's fairly certain that communism violates the Constitution when it's mandated by the government. So, not a bad point. That's it might be possible in theory, but is it practically possible? I would suggest likely not. Putin's cat brings up Haiti. How many attempts? Oh my gosh, not wrong there. Many, and it seems like none of them ever succeed. And so I don't want to read, obviously the Federalist Papers is a great big long thing. I don't want to read all of it. I may not even read all of this, but I wanted to read at least a portion, if not the entirety, of the Federalist number 10. When people get into this debate about whether we're a democracy or a republic, and then people get offended one way or the other, I really rarely like to get into that debate, but I'm going to at least put my toes in the water a little bit and read Federalist number 10. Putin's cat says culture and corruption bring Haiti down. And Matt Cheatwood says, one of my favorite quotes is, the people always get the government that they deserve. Ooh, that hurts, but likely not wrong. Oh, I stopped presenting instead of sharing. Okay, Federalist number 10. Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction. I think most of you know that one of Plato and Aristotle's arguments against democracy was that it was too prone to faction and too prone to a tyranny by the majority. That's my analysis, not the Federalist. The friend of popular governments never finds himself so much alarmed for their character and fate as when he contemplates their propensity to this dangerous vice. He will not fail, therefore, to set a due value on any plan which, without violating the principles to which he is attached, provides a proper cure for it. The instability, injustice, and confusion introduced into the public councils have in truth been the mortal diseases under which popular governments have everywhere perished, as they continue to be the favorite and fruitful topics from which the adversaries to liberty derive their most specious declamations. The valuable improvements made by the American constitutions on the popular models, both ancient and modern, cannot certainly be too much admired, but it would be an unwarrantable partiality to contend that they have as effectually obviated the danger on this side as was wished and expected. Complaints are everywhere heard from our most considerate and virtuous citizens, equally the friends of public and private faith and of public and personal liberty, that our governments are too unstable, that the public good is disregarded in the conflicts of rival parties, and that measures are too often decided not according to the rules of justice and the rights of the minor party, but by the superior force of an interested and overbearing majority. And sorry about that. However anxiously we may wish that these complaints had no foundation, the evidence of known facts will not permit us to deny that they are in some degree true. It will be found, indeed, on a candid review of our situation, that some of these distresses under which we labor have been erroneously charged on the operation of our governments, but it will be found at the same time that other causes will not alone account for many of our heaviest misfortunes, and particularly for that prevailing and increasing distrust of public engagements and alarm for private rights, which are echoed from one end of the continent to the other. There must be chiefly, if not wholly, effects of the unsteadiness and injustice with which a factious spirit has tainted our public administration. Now, part of the reason why I chose this one is simply it sounds so much like, to me, our current times. I realize he wrote this for the 18th century, but it's totally sounds apropos to what's going on now. Mikey Susie Ford, the Haitian government also rules by fear, and that's not a viable way ever to lead their country at large. Enigma Severus, which cultures and corruptions are you referring to, Putin's cat? And Putin's cat answers with, as I said, Haiti seems to be in constant upheaval. Either the U.S. is stealing the money sent there, or the Haitian president is stealing it. By a faction, I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction. The one, by removing its causes, which, side note, does sound a little simplistic, but I won't judge too hard. He's already said more than I'll usually say. The other, by controlling its effects. There are again two methods of removing the causes of faction. The one, by destroying the liberty which is essential to its existence. The other, by giving to every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. It could never be more truly said than of the first remedy that it is worse than the disease. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an element without which it instantly expires. But it could not be a less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life because it nourishes faction, than it would be to wish the annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life because it imparts to fire its destructive agency. And I know the physics has changed since those times, but I still think it's a relevant point. We wouldn't want to get rid of oxygen just to make sure there's never a fire again. Putin's cat says Haiti is earthquake prone, but they live in crap houses. They cannot survive them. The population is not educated well. Dominican Republic is right next door, but they seem okay. And that's actually a good point. Why is it that the Dominican Republic doesn't have some of the problems that Haiti has? Putin's cat, don't forget, they haven't had any free elections either. Enigma Severus, Haiti is technically in a better position than half of the African countries. Turkey, as well as about 5 other Middle Eastern countries. Interesting. I don't know if that is accurate, but it does sound to be accurate, and it's an interesting thing to think about. Back to the Federalist paper, the second expedient is as impracticable as the first would be unwise. And again, the second one was to essentially remove, basically force everybody to have the same opinions and passions. And I can't help but suspect that that seems to be what, in my humble opinion, a lot of people, and again, I don't want to mention names, but a lot of people seem to be guiding us in that direction. You've got to think like us. You've got to believe like us. You've got to think like us. And that, he suggests, is not an answer either. Haiti has Roman games controlling the capital. It could never be, let's see, as long as the reason of man continues fallible and he is at liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. As long as the connection subsists between his reason and his self-love, his opinions and his passions will have a reciprocal influence on each other, and the former will be objects to which the latter will attach themselves. The diversity in the faculties of men from which the rights of property originate is not less an insuperable obstacle to a uniformity of interests. The protection of these faculties is the first object of government. From the projection of different and unequal faculties of acquiring property, the possession of different degrees and kinds of property immediately results, and from the influence of these on the sentiments and views of the respective proprietors ensues a division of the society into different interests and parties. And back to the chat, Mikey Susie 4, those gangs are also ruled by voodoo-induced warlords and corrupt law enforcement groups. Putin's Cat, June 26th. A group of Kenyan police waved their national flag as they arrived in Haiti. Yeah, that's right. Isn't that odd and interesting? I don't know if it's odd in a bad way, but it's interesting. As they arrived in Haiti for a controversial peacekeeping mission to combat the influence of powerful gangs. And Enigma Severus replies to Putin's Cat, what do you think half of the American continent has? Middle East, without naming their specific religion. Middle East controls by fear, and that is all too often true. Putin's Cat, July 9th, the ballooning debt in East Africa's economic hub of Kenya is expected to grow even more after deadly protests forced the rejection of a finance bill that President William Ruto, he began the quote. I'll let him finish it. And while he's finishing that, instead of reading, I'll just make a comment that essentially the founding fathers did understand that the right to property, the right of the belief in capitalism, it's definitely not perfect. It can lead to factions. And so therefore, how do we inoculate our governments and our cultures as best as we can, preferably without violence? But the founding fathers were not 100% unwilling to do violence. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I myself think that likely it's good. I know that's controversial and dangerous to say, but I also don't know that I have the guts to say anything more than that. Putin's Cat responds to Enigma Severus, I'm not going off into Africa or other places. Everything I've stated about Haiti is a fact. One country at a time. That's fair. The latent causes of faction are thus sown in the nature of man, and we see them everywhere, brought into different degrees of activity according to the different circumstances of civil society. The zeal for different opinions concerning religion, concerning government, and many other points, as well as speculation as of practice, an attachment to different leaders, ambitiously contending for preeminence and power, or to persons of other descriptions whose fortunes have been interesting to the human passions, have in turn divided mankind into parties, inflamed them with mutual animosity, and rendered them much more disposed to vex and oppress each other than to cooperate for their common good. So strong was this propensity of mankind to fall into mutual animosities that where no substantial occasion presents itself, the most frivolous and fanciful distinctions have been sufficient to kindle their unfriendly passions and excite their most violent conflicts. And I'm going to insert a little bit of my own analysis here. I know that everybody is going to disagree if I bring up any particular, maybe not everybody, but half of everybody will disagree if I bring up a particular point. But look at what's going on now in our politics. And maybe you can't agree about your own side, but you definitely, I guarantee you can look at the other side and see pettiness and meanness and small-mindedness. You may not see it on yours, but I'm going to also guarantee you this. The other side does. And for some reason, we've gotten to where we aren't able to debate about it. We just kind of bash each other. Enigma Severus, Putin's Cat first. I originally made the point Haiti is not worse off than other countries. Mikey Susie 4 was Kenyan juju. Oh my, what better than Haitian voodoo practices? I personally wouldn't mess with either religion. Putin's Cat, Enigma Severus, we're talking about democracy. Why Haiti, right off American coast, is unable to succeed? And Enigma Severus responds, Putin's Cat, and second, what is your actual point about Haiti? Want they have problems like Colombia did when Escobar ran things? Putin's Cat responds, I brought up Kenya because I was surprised they had the time to send troops all the way to Haiti with their own problems. And It's not a bad point. Enigma Severus responds, the reason Haiti is where it is right now is because you have corruption in our government. And to be blunt, Haiti has nothing that our corrupt government wants. That is why they are as they are. I don't know that I can give 100% stamp of approval on that, but I think I can give a 90-some% stamp of approval. That does seem like a good point. Putin's cat, the future leaders of U.S., Russia, China, India, and others are all old. Yeah, that's not a bad point either. Matt Cheatwood is a libertarian. I have no trouble seeing the flaws in the Uniparty. Amen. God, Cthulhu, or whatever is out there, bless you. Still comparing other countries. Haiti doesn't want proper housing. Yeah. Without meaning to fan flames, I think Enigma Severus's point wasn't that Haiti didn't want things, but that our corrupt government doesn't care about Haiti. And I think maybe I'm misunderstanding the point. Please correct me and forgive me if I've misstated your point, Enigma Severus. Not saying that your point is invalid either. I'm just saying that I think that was what Enigma Severus was saying. Yeah, no, Haiti's in a bad place, and it's not invalid. Someone should be out there saying, hey, Haiti's a crap show. This is embarrassing. Can't we do something about this? Okay, where did I leave off? So strong is this propensity of mankind to fall into mutual animosities that where no substantial occasion presents itself, the most frivolous and fanciful distinctions have been sufficient to kindle their unfriendly passions. But the most common and durable source of factions has been the various and unequal distribution of property. I think I read that already. Those who are creditors, those who are debtors, fall under a like discrimination. A landed interest, a manufacturing interest, a mercantile interest, a moneyed interest with many lesser interests grow up of necessity in civilized nations and divide them into different classes, actuated by different sentiments and views. The regulation of these various and interfering interests form the principal task of modern legislation and involves the spirit of party and faction in the necessary and ordinary operations of government. Enigma Severus is responding to Putin's cat. USA had the Bay of Pigs incident. Yeah. From that point, we have not tried to take over the island. It is true. Our corrupt government does not care about Haiti, without naming names. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much for respecting the thing. Again, I wouldn't have gotten on to you, but I mainly because if I pick on one, people want me to pick on the other to be fair, and I would be okay with that, except I think the central point needs to be made, and then we can talk about who's bad and who's not. Putin's cat, imagine if Samoans had to fly to Hawaii to get law and order. Putin's cat, Enigma Severus responds, hey man, I have no problem making corrupt people obsolete. No problem at all. Yet, our government always asks the question, how does freeing any country benefit us? Oh, yeah, it's a good point. It's well put. Back to the Federalist paper. No man is allowed to be a judge in his own cause. I think we've forgotten that a little bit in our society. But anyway, because his interest would certainly bias his judgment and not improbably corrupt his integrity. With equal, nay, with greater reason, a body of men are unfit to be both judges and parties at the same time. Yet what are many of the most important acts of legislation but so many judicial determinations, not indeed concerning the rights of single persons, but concerning the rights of large bodies of citizens? And what are the different classes of legislators but advocates and parties to the causes which they determine? Is a law proposed concerning private debts? It is a question to which the creditors are parties on one side and the debtors on the other. Justice ought to hold the balance between them. Yet the parties are and must be themselves the judges, and the most numerous party, or in other words, the most powerful faction, must be expected to prevail. Shall domestic manufactures be encouraged, and in what degree? By restrictions on foreign manufactures are questions which would be differently decided by the landed and the manufacturing classes, and probably by neither, with a sole regard to justice and the public good. The apportionment of taxes on the various descriptions of property is an act which seems to require the most exact impartiality. Yet there is perhaps no legislative act in which greater opportunity and temptation are given to a predominant party to trample on the rules of justice. Every shilling with which they overburden the inferior number is a shilling saved to their own pockets. Yeah, we're not fighting here. Hopefully y'all are just debating, but there it is. I know that I won't say which side I'm on this debate. I'm not going to bring up a politician, but I will bring up an issue at the risk of being maybe a little disingenuous. And that's the reason why I don't want to give my opinion, because it would be totally unfair if I start slamming one side, not the other. But I know that nearly an even number of my friends believes that it was a good thing that we forgave the student loan debts. And a nearly equal and obviously opposite group of friends believes that that was unjust and unfair. I'm not necessarily intending for you to start discussing that, although it's okay if you do. But I think that's exactly the point that's being made by the Federalist Papers here. Whatever side you're on that, was it a just thing to do? Was it justly enacted? That's the question both sides propose, and each one obviously accuses the other one of being unjust. Enigma Severus responds to Putin's cat, I'm following your lead on your topic, man. You can't ask a question and then disagree with how I respond. I'm not exactly sure I understood that one, but I think I get where you're going, but I'm just tired enough that I may not be following perfectly. Mikey Susie 4, many country citizens say that we need to bring back revolutions or coups. Those are hard concepts to debate or institute, depending on the country. Putin's cat says, I think Haiti problems for the last 40 years are more than U.S. corruption. And with respect to you, Enigma Severus, that's not wrong. I think there is more to it than just that. But I would agree with Enigma that a big chunk of it, I don't know exactly how big of a chunk, but a big chunk of it probably is American corruption. At Putin's cat, in response to Mikey Susie 4, support of the Shah of Iran was directly, and this is not wrong either, against an elected leader in Iran. And then eventually they overthrew him and became a theocracy. I don't think we should meddle. And I am mainly in agreement with that. This is where, again, both sides get upset with me. But while I'm not a true libertarian, I am just enough of one to think that within the limits of, actually trying to keep our country safe, I think that the less we meddle with other countries, the better off we're going to be. I'm probably being overly simplistic, and there's probably someone with a really intelligent argument that will just throw me down. But Matt Cheatwood, I'm firmly of the opinion that forgiving student debt in the U.S. is theft from every taxpayer that doesn't owe it. And again, I don't want to say my side of it only because I don't want to be unfair. I set a rule, and now I'm partially breaking it. but I will just say I firmly respect that opinion. Leave it at that. Enigma Severus responds to Mikey Susie 4. It has never been outlawed to do coups or revolutions. The issue is, who are you going to piss off if you succeed? Yeah, countries are not autonomous. Sadly true. Enigma Severus responds, Matt Cheatwood agreed. I have my master's and I paid my own way. Good on you. I respect the hell out of you. I don't know if I've always shown that, but I really do. And that just adds to it. I know that's profound. I wish I could say the same, but I respect the heck out of that. He's about to buy his own house. That is fantastic. And Poods Cat, people should be educated to pick themselves up. Handouts should be for the severely poor. I respect that opinion 100%. Mikey Susie 4, I don't think the U.S. should interfere. It's been ignored consistently, and sadly, we need to come up with better solutions of non-aggression. Agreed. Matt Cheatwood at Poods Cat, people should educate themselves, and handouts should be voluntary. Definitely, I respect that opinion. Okay, so back to, I'm almost done with it, I think. It is in vain to say that enlightened statesmen will be able to adjust these clashing interests and render them all subservient to the public good. Enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm. Boy, that hits home. Whichever one you're against, look at the one you're against if you can't accept both. Look at the one you're against. I know you agree with that statement for the person you're against. Nor in many cases can such an adjustment be made at all, without taking into view indirect and remote considerations which will rarely prevail over the immediate interest which one party may find in disregarding the rights of another or the good of the whole. Oh, hey, Connie Cleary. No, I did this last minute. And I know I need to stop doing that, but my personal life, since we've gotten past the 40-minute mark, I don't think anyone that I work for is going to listen to this that far into it. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to find another job, and I've been doing a lot of interviews, and that has left me with very little time to do these streams. So I apologize for not making and keeping to a good schedule. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm going to skip some of this stuff, not because it's not a good point, but because I don't want to get off the track. Enigma Severus responds to Mikey Susie 4 with the U.S. way of not interfering is sending a secret person to handle another person quietly. Matt Cheatwood, exactly. Those who want to give. Those who don't must not be forced to. A lot of people saying hi to each other. I love that. Enigma Severus responds to Poods Cat. There is a comedy skit about hiring a math teacher and how the teacher must teach kids against their will to learn math. Yeah, that's in response to some interesting, but and I guess I will share at least this part of it. Poods Cat says young cannot educate themselves, which you have a point on. Yes, I think Matt Cheatwood is right in that they can go find books, they can find mentors, they can work and pay for education. But at the end of the day, it will work so much better and so much faster if there is someone somewhere to teach. I think you will, even though I'm not the best probably martial artist in this group, I think there are enough martial arts types in here to understand that just watching a video of technique and reading a book about technique is nothing like having an instructor who knows the technique, knows how to show it, knows how to apply it. So it's not a bad point. Where did I get down to? Okay, Matt Cheatwood at Putin's Cat, I have to disagree. Some kids actually want to learn algebra and many other subjects. Those who do not want to learn cannot be taught by force. Yeah, yeah. And thank you for your patience and your support and kindness, Connie Cleary. You're the best. I have, I have some of the best people here. I gotta hand it to you. Even when I don't attract a lot of people, I attract some of the best people. Putin's Cat, there is a mental illness aspect to some homeless. Yeah, agreed. I'm in favor of a fee for an ID to panhandle, maybe $10. I don't agree with the Supreme Court saying being homeless can be fined. Interesting. I don't have a response to that one just now, but it's it's a thought, something to think about. Putin's Cat says at Matt Cheatwood, we need some standard education. People saying hello to each other. God bless all of you, or Cthulhu, or whatever's out there. Putin's Cat, can students balance a checkbook or understand debt? I'm sure some can, and I'm sure many can't. You can't swim by laying on a beach and flapping your arms. You have to jump in. Agreed. Yeah, I didn't learn. I had to have an instructor teach me, and I had to get in the water to do it. Enigma Severus, Putin's Cat, I agree. We do need education. Sadly, the educational system is beginning to believe that they have the authority to teach immoral things. I am a Spanish teacher, not saying I know everything. Yeah. Interesting point. Putin's Cat, if kids cannot do basic math, science, or reading, writing, then are we back to letting parents override schools? Ooh. Yeah, that's a tender topic. Mikey Susie 4, those mental health homeless could be given free incentives to receive free education, but I do know that concept will piss off self-taught kids or private school institutions, amongst other schools. All right. Good discussions going on. Okay, so if a faction consists of less than a majority, relief is supplied by the Republican principle. And here's where we get into that thorny thing that some people don't want to hear, and others have been insulted because people have said it in a spiteful, hateful way. And there's someone out there who I very much respect, who I hope, if they listen to this, hears me say that I get that some people think that the difference between a republic and a democracy is just semantics. I get that. But I humbly suggest that it is more than just semantics. And I think that was what the whole debate about the Constitution was. Putin's Cat says, I remember some pig farmer type would always say that his kid didn't need algebra, so his children and those children became a caste, never seeing other possibilities. Enigma Severus responds to Mikey Susie 4. This is why the states hold the authority on how education is handled. Here in Georgia, we were less problematic with how education works. Connie Cleary, which schools would teach about taxes, checking, car maintenance? Yeah, agreed. Putin's Cat, the states should come together and do some basic standards. And I know there's lots of intelligent debate on both sides of that. You know, whether should states do it, should the country, should the federal government do it? Connie Clear says the parents should help with it. Yeah, agreed. So if a faction consists of less than a majority, relief is supplied by the Republican principle, which enables the majority to defeat its sinister views by a regular vote. It may clog the administration, it may convulse the society, but it will be unable to execute and mask its violence under the forms of the Constitution. And I would just put this out there, again, to both sides. Can you think of times, and maybe you can't think of times when your side did, but can you think of times when the opposition executed and masked its violence under the forms of the Constitution? I just about guarantee everyone can think of an instance of the opposition, whatever that opposition is. When a majority is included in a faction, the form of popular government, on the other hand, enables it to sacrifice to its ruling passion or interest both the public good and the rights of other citizens, to secure the public good and private rights against the danger of such a faction, and at the same time to preserve the spirit and the form of popular government, is then the great object to which our inquiries are directed. Let me add that it is the great desideratum by which alone this form of government can be rescued from the opprobrium under which it has so long labored, and be recommended to the esteemed and adoption of mankind. Very wordy, but I still think well put. Putin's cat said there's a national security aspect to education. Otherwise, the same people that oppose standards have to import labor to build our missiles. Yeah. At Putin's cat, Enigma Severus responds with, I've heard those things about not needing something. I would go back to my point. It's a situation of showing the individual person how education will support his entire family. Mikey Susie 4, which is why the U.S. Department of Education, if most teachers agree, is a joke and should be regulated by the individual state governments. And again, I know very intelligent people on both sides of that argument. I'm going to be Switzerland on this one, although I respect both viewpoints. I know some very excellent arguments for both viewpoints, but I can absolutely understand people who want more local control of their educational systems. At Putin's cat, Enigma Severus, if never exposed to higher math, possibilities after will dwindle. Same about proper speaking, agreed. Without, people are always talking about the 3 R's. I don't know if anyone else, there's some really intelligent, well-educated people here, so I'm sure there's others who've heard this, but it actually used to be 4 R's. It was reading, it was writing, it was arithmetic, and it was rhetoric. Rhetoric has become a bad word, but there was a time when the whole point of rhetoric was knowing how to make a balanced and intelligent argument that leaned on ethos, pathos, logos. Ethos being your credibility, pathos being you do want to appeal to the emotions of the people, but you don't want to just base your argument solely on that. You want logos as well. You want facts. You want information. And I love that both, like, people are debating in here with passion, but also with facts and information. Enigma Severus, Putin's cat. Oh, I fully agree, man. Simply inspiring, showing the parent how it will secure their child. I have to explain this with parents about why should my kid need Spanish. Today, that is kind of obvious, especially if the kid is in a problematic neighborhood and needing to know what is being said. Putin's cat has a point. Have you listened to some of the guys that got certain sports scholarships? Not wrong. Mikey Susie 4, being Swiss would benefit you highly, Curtis. I'm trying to do better at it. And Connie Cleary agrees with somebody, probably Mikey Susie 4. Putin's cat, to be fair, in high school you can get a trade school part-time. Yeah, agreed. Mikey Susie 4, good latest points there. Enigma Severus at Putin's cat. Charles Barkley made a huge point about education on a talk show. He has an interview, awesome view, if Curtis would be willing to YouTube it for us. I won't do that now, but I will take that under advisement. Let me, guess I have a pen. I will look up Charles Barkley. Probably won't be my next stream, but I will absolutely be happy to look into him and do a tired blogger analysis on that. Putin's cat, the U.S. is sending money to some government that have very high educational standards. Yeah, true. Putin's cat says the highest paying jobs in the U.S., CEOs, sports and entertainment people, news commentators, and some YouTube stars and OnlyFans. I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate, but I suspect it likely is. It likely is at least not far from wrong. All right. I will get through this Federalist paper. By what means is this object obtainable? Which was basically, how do we keep the majority from just being a tyrant over the minority? Evidently by one of two only. Either the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority having such coexistent passion or interest must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of opposition. If the impulse and the opportunity be suffered to coincide, we well know that neither moral nor religious motives can be relied on as an adequate control. They are not found to be such on the injustice and violence of individuals, and lose their efficacy in proportion to the number combined together, that is, in proportion as their efficacy becomes needful. I don't know that I want to read the whole thing. Let's see. I'm going to skip just a little ways down. I'm still going to read quite a bit of it, but not the whole thing. Enigma Severus at Putin's Cat OnlyFans. Really? I don't mean to be laughing at anyone. And just, yeah, I'm really ignorant about where OnlyFans is actually located on the web. How did any of that start? Oh, Enigma Severus, we all know. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing your point. I'm not meaning to anyway. But we all know where that, basically it's just porn. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ding me for saying that. Made, by amateurs, and yet they become professionals. Point is, how many of them are skilled labor? At Enigma Severus, it was a joke, but if you are a young female that can do hot yoga for donations, you can make a lot. Don't doubt that's true. Mikey Susan 4, is junior achievement still an added extracurricular benefit in high schools? It helped me out tremendously, and the education system needs to revive, keep their similar trade schools in place. Enigma Severus, I don't need to go searching, but is OnlyFans just where women strip and have acts for people to pay and watch? That's a waste. Yeah. And I mean, I have my own frailties, but without meaning to brag or without meaning to judge, so far, I have not succumbed to any temptation to look on OnlyFans. I've done some other things, so, maybe you shouldn't be real proud of me, but Putin's Cat, yeah, we're not monetized. Maybe divert to Patreon, get members that way. Yeah, I have a Patreon page, but I haven't got it set up adequately yet. I need to work on that. If I can quote John Travolta in Swordfish, yeah, not wrong. That's like a self-pleasuring without a payoff. I know people on YouTube that sell calendars and bikinis. Well, yeah, okay. Putin's Cat, there's a girl in Japan I've seen lately. She streams for 5 hours just walking around Tokyo. She has 9,000 subs. Putin's Cat, are they single and can they move to Georgia? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to read the last page of this article, and then I'm going to share the video that I'm going to share, and then I'm going to call it a stream. It must be confessed that in this, as in most other cases, there is a mean on both sides of which inconveniencies will be found to lie. By enlarging too much the number of electors, you render the representatives too little acquainted with all their local circumstances and lesser interests, as by reducing it too much, you render him unduly attached to these and too little fit to comprehend and pursue great and national objects. The federal constitution forms a happy combination in this respect, of the great and aggregate interests being referred to the national, the local, and particular to the state legislatures. I have wondered if we have, sometimes I'm tempted to say we have too many legislators because so many things get bogged down. But then on the other hand, it seems like they ignore the crap out of their constituents. I don't know. It's a thing. Putin's cat. I saw one buy a house with a pool, and she started doing her hot yoga in the backyard. Putin's cat. I know we get into debates. I enjoy your thinking, Enigma Cat, and so do I. I know I sometimes get cranky, but I do enjoy your thinking, Putin's cat. I hope you don't ever think that I don't. If you can see me as your devil's advocate, I like pressing your points. Yeah, you two make great devil's advocates of each other. I think I did. Have you made one since the last one that was made with the like the stick figure man that was basically singing? I will have to look at your channel and see if I've watched the last one. The other point of difference is the greater number of citizens and extent of territory, which may be brought within the compass of Republican than of Democratic government. It is this circumstance principally which renders factious combinations less to be dreaded in the former than in the latter. The smaller the society, the fewer probably will be the distinct parties and interests composing it. The fewer the distinct parties and interests, the more frequently will a majority be found of the same party, and the smaller the number of individuals composing a majority, and the smaller the compass within which they are placed, the more easily will they concert and execute their plans of oppression. Extend the sphere, and you take in a greater variety of parties and interests. You make it less probable that a majority of the whole will have a common motive to invade the rights of other citizens, or if such a common motive exists, it will be more difficult for all who feel it to discover their own strength and to act in unison with each other. Besides other impediments, it may be remarked that where there is a consciousness of unjust or dishonorable purposes, communication is always checked by distrust in proportion to the number whose concurrence is necessary. Now, doing a tired blogger analysis of that, I'm going to make both sides angry here. I'm going to be the anti-Switzerland. I'm so sorry, Mikey Susie 4. I'm going to be the anti-Switzerland for just a bit. Sometimes, as much as I love America, as much as I want her to prosper and be free and to be the greatest, or at least one of the greatest nations, sometimes I wonder if we've gotten too big. I wonder sometimes if we've become such a juggernaut that we no longer are able to respond to the common man or the smaller constituency. I don't have an answer to it, but I often wonder if that's the case. That paper points out that a republic does better at managing large populations and large territories than a true democracy does. And that I think that's why we've been able to expand. But I wonder if we've hit that limit. How long has it been since we've had a new state? People talk about the American empire, but we really haven't. We may have armies all over the place, but we haven't actually added territory. And is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. Mikey Susie 4 says, Enigma, finding a desirable, intelligent, and love-informed female is tougher than ever. Being a Spanish teacher would make searches easier, but maybe decide to lower the bar a bit. Oh, man. I'm definitely going to stay out of that. Nobody wants to get their love life advice from me. I guarantee it. Putin's cat. Popcorn music, it wasn't special, but I did. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you used Blender and got the head movements and mouth. Yes, I did see that one, and I hope I liked it. I'll go back and make sure that I did. But no, I love that you're making progress there. Keep working on it. I will be so happy when there's the day when there's the Putin's hot take or Putin's cat's hot take with a cat giving your views. That will be wonderful. As a guy that has been involved with many cultures, you should find a good fit, strong base. Otherwise, it will blow out in a couple of years. Yeah. Enigma Severus, Mikey Susie 4, lived in South America for 7 years, went back to Argentina for a girl in 2010, went to Paraguay. Both did not want to leave their family, both Christian too. Not as easy as you would think to simply get to know the woman and then be able to bring her back. Honestly, I'm allowing Christ to handle it, trying to keep myself from frailties. Yeah, and I respect you for that. But if you fall or fail, I'm not going to judge because I have fallen and failed. I don't want to get into that because it'll either sound like I'm bragging, which I don't have any right to, or will just reveal the incredibly terrible cad that I have been at some points in my life. But Enigma Severus has lived in Argentina, Peru, Panama, been to and stayed in Ecuador, Chile, Costa Rica, England, Scotland. Matt Cheatwood, when the majority disregards freedom and desires to take from the citizens when their greatest disagreement is how to squander the riches seized, America is fallen. And it's awfully tempting to say that we've been there for a bit. Putin's cat, yes, when I do my streams, the cat will pick a person every stream and put a picture in a little box. That will be so fun. That will be so fun. Hence, it clearly appears that the same advantage which a republic has over a democracy in controlling the effects of faction is enjoyed by a large over a small republic, is enjoyed by the union over the states composing it. Does this advantage consist in the substitution of representatives whose enlightened views and virtuous sentiments render them superior to local prejudices and to schemes of injustice? It will not be denied that the representation of the union will be most likely to possess these requisite endowments. Does it consist in the greater security afforded by a greater variety of parties against the event of any one party being able to outnumber and oppress the rest? In an equal degree, does the increased variety of parties comprised within the union increase this security? Does it, in fine, consist in the greater obstacles opposed to the concert and accomplishment of the secret wishes of an unjust and interested majority? Here again, the extent of the union gives it the most palpable advantage, and I would never suggest that I'm smarter than any of the founding fathers, but I'm going to make a point here. He should have been right. He absolutely. George Washington warned us against parties, and then, like, as soon as he's out of office, we go straight to them. I humbly suggest that a big part of what's going on is this two-party system that has basically betrayed us all. I think that all too often the parties will say things that their constituency wants to hear, but then they will do exactly the same things that the other side did. Putin's cat, I will say I don't agree taking Russia's money without due process. That is piracy. Well, yeah, it's a point. Enigma Severus at Matt Cheatwood, news is already shared. Those who are corrupt are only interested in power and control. Money is only a means to it. Controlling the people and power over those people is coveted. Mikey Susie 4. One of the things that attracted me to my beautiful Suzanne was her phrase, leave everything in God's hands. It's a very succinct belief. Many problems can be solved without worry or despair. And Enigma Severus, the only thing that corrupt people desire is control and power. That's largely true. The only good thing for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. Question is, when should good men act on too much evil happening? Yeah, and I think the rest of that, which you're smarter to not state it, because the subtle and intelligent most of you will get it. But because I can be dull sometimes, I will say, have we reached that point? I don't know. The influence of factious leaders may kindle a flame within their particular states, but will be unable to spread a general conflagration through the other states. A religious sect may degenerate into a political faction in a part of the Confederacy, but the variety of sects dispersed over the entire face of it must secure the national councils against any danger from that source. A rage for paper money, for an abolition of debts, for an equal division of property, or for any other improper or wicked project. This is the words of a founding father, not mine. But I would suggest that I agree with a lot, not all necessarily, but a lot of this. And I'm very willing to defer to the wisdom of the founding fathers when I disagree. Any other improper or wicked project will be less apt to pervade the whole body of the Union than a particular member of it. In the same proportion as such a malady is more likely to taint a particular county or district than an entire state. In the extent and proper structure of the Union, therefore, we behold a Republican remedy for the diseases most incident to Republican government. And according to the degree of pleasure and pride we feel in being Republicans, ought to be our zeal in cherishing the spirit and supporting the character of Federalists. So, again, the words of a founding father. I wish I knew which one it was. I didn't do enough research to figure out which one. I want to say that was Madison, but I could easily be wrong. Act in any evil way, though. I'm not sure what the question is. I know it's probably very simple, but I'm tired enough to not get it. Matt Cheatwood, I would be surprised if 3 or more people agree on what evil is. They might agree with the definition, but I almost guarantee that any of us, if we were polled in private, I'd bet there would be divergences in particular acts or extents of acts. At Matt Cheatwood, that's the problem. A Muslim or an Indian will kill family members over certain things. At Mikey Susie 4, Putin's cat, that put persons in a violence begets violence attitude might not be the direction we'd want to follow for government reformation. Enigma Severus, we have not reached that point yet, Curtis. I hope you're right. You will know it if a permanent curfew hits. Ooh, that's a good point. That's a good point. This is why the year that shall not be named was scary, because we will eventually have an all-controlling government at that time, Parabellum, John Wick 3. I have sadly not seen John Wick 3. I'm so sorry. I've seen the first 2, and that's as far as I got. I know it's kind of lame that I hang out with movie people because I love movies. I just haven't gotten to see very many of them. I won't make excuses. Okay. So the video that I want to share, and I know I have to be careful. This is all for educational purposes. These are not necessarily the views of anybody. And this is the one and only person I'm going to talk about as far as a politician. I'm not saying that you have to like Kennedy or love Kennedy. Or whatever you think about him is not the point. Yeah, I do. Yes, Mikey Susie 4. I need to see John Wick 3 and 4. Yeah, agreed. Putin's cat, you mean Equilibrium? Possibly. I think you're referring to... Oh, no. Actually, no. It was referring to the movie Parabellum. Enigma Severus, not the Bay of Pigs, man. Yeah, you're not wrong. I still find myself, right or wrong, respecting Kennedy, but he definitely made some profound mistakes. and I'll just leave it at that. But I do want you to share. I want to say this was one of his last speeches. It wasn't his last one. I found out, I once shared that this was his last one and found to my chagrin that there was at least one or two more. But I believe this was very close to his last speech. Parabellum, prepare for war. Yeah, agreed. I don't know that I got that one, but okay. Okay, so let's listen to John F. Kennedy for a minute or so. If it'll play. Why is it not playing?
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment.
Does any of that sound familiar? And again, if you're not able to criticize your own side for doing it, I guarantee you can look at your opposition and say they are absolutely doing that. Matt Cheatwood, the tyrants most to be feared are those who think they act for the good of others. Yoshimion, I do not know who that is. I probably need to look that up, but not tonight. Enigma Severus says, Matt Cheatwood, the key word, the good of others. The idea, this is for your own good. That is one you know they're wrong. Good men act to protect and sacrifice themselves. And I know you know him better than I do. And I don't feel any jealousy toward you about that at all, Enigma Severus. But you surely know what C.S. Lewis would be saying, that the theocracy is the worst possible form of government because it is so easy for flawed men. I'm paraphrasing him here. You probably know the exact quote. You probably know the book. I can't remember which one it was. But theocracy, it's so easy for us to be willing to do the most horrible tortures and the most horrible oppressions because it's for the good of that person. And you're not wrong, Mikey Susie 4. It is kind of ironic that he's saying all this when JFK had his own secrets. Makes him sound self-deprecating. Yeah, or to some it might sound hypocritical. I don't know that I go that far, but I can understand if someone thinks that. Each person is the best judge of what is good for themselves. Putin's cat, the Japanese girl, she walks around Tokyo. Today she is cooking because it's rainy. She's basically just streaming her day. Yeah, when you're beautiful, you don't have to rely on stuff like that. Is that fair? I don't know. But God made her that way, or nature, or whatever it is. So
that I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
Now, I'm almost 100% certain that he's referring to communism. He's referring to Russia, China. Having said that, if you can indulge me for a moment, let me put on my tinfoil hat. You don't have to agree with this, and I'm not going to say too much because I don't want YouTube to ding me, but is it possible that either he was referring to something much closer to home, or is it possible that referring even tangentially, possibly even accidentally, to something closer to home is a part of what got him assassinated? Again, I know YouTube will censor me for saying any more than that. You don't have to agree with it, but I wonder. I don't know if I believe, but I wonder if that is a possibility. Enigma Severus, the taste of power, yeah, can destroy the most humble of men. I haven't had a lot of power, but the few times I've had a little bit, I've learned that I'm not as cool a person as I thought I was. Putin's cat, she is more talented than others. And Kennedy gave a speech one time. He acknowledged the Soviet Union made great sacrifices in World War II, and that's true. They did. I mean, I think it would be totally unfair and foolish to deny they did make massive sacrifices in World War II. Enigma Severus, Putin's cat, there's a country girl, Hannah Barron, streams her country life. I made a comment. I wanted to date her. Guy commented back, you and 100,000 others. Matt Cheatwood, is likely he was referring to socialism, but he could just as well have been speaking about the U.S. Let's see what else. I'll give another minute or so.
Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned. No rumor is printed. No secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And I would suggest that maybe back then they did. I did a stream earlier about the difference between reporting now and reporting then. But I think that largely the media has, and again, both sides. You know, one side's got their media outlets, the other side has their media outlets. We're not going to analyze either person's platform. What we're going to do is we're going to take what is kind of a fragmentary platform of the other side, and we're going to fill it with a bunch of lies and exaggerations and bastardizations. And then we're going to present that as the platform. And again, I know I'm not asking you at this juncture to admit that your side does it too. But I guarantee you, whatever side you're on, you can look at the opposition and absolutely say, well, my candidate does not believe this. My candidate does not do that. And frankly, in a lot of cases, you're likely right. But the media outlets of the opposition are reporting things. And I'm going to be a little bit vague here because I want to be Switzerland, but I feel like both sides are reporting things that are untrue. Now, there are also some things that are coming out that are true. I will not dive into that right now because I want to be Switzerland. Putin's cat. Enigma Severus, is she the one that gets attacked by soft city females that say she is not a lady? Enigma Severus responds, I don't think so. She does catfish hunting with her family. She's a woman and most likely out of any man's league. I don't think many would keep up with her. Is she the one that did some noodling here a while back? Because it seems like I got something about that in my YouTube feed.
For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only...
And I can't remember exactly where it's at, but for our form of government to work, it leans on a well-informed electorate. And without that, I honestly don't see how we've lasted this long. People do attack her, Enigma Severus. Nuh-uh, our side is the good side, big baby Swiss. No, it's okay, Enigma. Look, I admit I have a bias, and it probably comes out. And there is a side that I tend to lean more toward than the other. But I do all too often see my side, quote unquote, doing the same things that are accused of the other side. And then I talk to people on the other side and they're saying the exact same things as people on my side, only the other way. And it's really playing with my head. Enigma Severus, who is on Twitter, people repost it, say she's not female. Oh, she is a woman, Putin's cat. Putin's cat, Enigma Severus, of course, but these couch-bound females with long nails are upset with her vids. I'll be in my bunk. Okay, let's get another minute or so of
only could not stifle controversy among your readers. I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold.
There's my humble opinion. There's a severe lack of leadership in our media. Severe lack, and I can't hardly blame them. I will risk not being. I will risk breaking my own rule because he's not a politician. But the Pentagon Papers were praised and lauded and declaimed as, I'm using the word wrong, but they were proclaimed as, you know, we're speaking truth to power, we're holding the government responsible, we're revealing the lies. For almost the exact same thing, Snowden and Assange are imprisoned. And I have very good friends with very intelligent arguments that say they should be, but my question that nobody's been able to answer, why do they deserve prison, but the people who wrote the Pentagon Papers deserved accolades and Pulitzer Prizes? Nobody's been able to explain that to me. Either one of those is obviously not right. I'm not smart enough to know which one. I have my bias on that too, but Enigma Severus, Putin's Cat, you will need to check Levi Nix. Okay, as well as Kevin Samuels, really funny. Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah, yeah. We love women here. I just have been burnt by a few, but anyway, I digress.
Educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
I've loved that speech ever since I first heard it. And again, I was misinformed years ago. I thought that was his last speech because conspiracy theorists were like, oh, this was his last speech and this is why he was assassinated. And that is, well, it may have contributed, but it is not a fact. He did do another one. Putin's cat, Snowden is a traitor. He violated his oath. He did not go to Congress. He went to Hong Kong and then Russia. But it still doesn't answer to me why the other side, why the other people got accolades. I mean, I guess it's true that they didn't run, but I would run too if people were coming after me with guns. Curtis recognizes me too, as well as Ms. Connie Clary. Yepers. Enigma Severus, you guys have actually helped me keep busy during the summer break. I've needed some people to discuss with and debate and enjoy movies with. The Office, Miss Connie, season 4, episode 2, money, I think. The people who wrote the Pentagon Papers, my apologies. I didn't know that the thing would go down that route. That's all, like I say, open for debate because I still just think that somehow an injustice was done. Either the injustice was done in imprisoning those guys or the injustice was done in giving the other people accolades. I will absolutely leave it up to you to make up your mind on that. I assume, Putin's cat, that you would either say that the other did not deserve the accolades, or you would have a very well thought out argument for why it's not so. Assange was arrested and jailed. Snowden probably weakened our national security. But the argument back then was that so did the Pentagon Papers. That was the argument then. I remember. I mean, I don't remember that, but I remember history reports later that many very intelligent military people were like, men in Vietnam died because of the Pentagon Papers. The exact same argument that's the only legitimate argument to me for why Assange or Snowden could be in prison. But why did it not apply to them? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Likely I am. Area 51. I think we should have mobbed it. No, I was not there. I should have been. Snowden is not a member of the press. Yeah, fair point. Although I think personally, I would suggest that might be an equivocation, but it's not a bad point. Those guys went before judges. They could have gone to jail. Yeah. Putin's cat, they didn't escape to China, and there's a huge difference. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I do wonder if they had gone to jail, what those guys would have done. I don't know. Well, I have rambled and rambled. I don't know if I've made a good point, but the point is democracy is not as simple as everyone thinks. Without some form of Republican restrictions, reservations, it can devolve into tyranny very quickly. And I feel that partly through the two-party uniparty system, partly through a massive dereliction of duty of the press, and partly through the subversions of some organizations, I think that's how we've ended up here. I don't know that we necessarily have a republic anymore, but yeah, I think Enigma Severus has a good point. When we start having permanent curfews, that's when we know the republic is done. People that work in secure environments sign papers and takes oaths. He violated these oaths. He deserves to be in prison forever. If memory serves, somebody fed the Pentagon Papers to the reporter. I don't think anyone was prosecuted. Again, it's a good point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to change your mind. I just still don't see myself the reason why one was good, one was bad. Putin's cat, I don't want military people to always question authority. No, I think that the military is a special case. You have to put a lid on that, at least to a point. But how much of a lid should you put on that? I mean, knowing about what was going on, I think it was actually vital for us to know. But I do understand the point that we probably had some assets that lost their lives, and that's not cool. Snowden should not be giving TED meetings from Russia. Yeah, I would agree about that. He could cause an attack. Tyranny is really bad. I mean, he destroyed the original Jurassic Park. Then he destroyed another park. I mean, how many parks is tyranny going to destroy before he learned? Yes. Did they catch him? If so, put him on trial. Did that guy take papers to Russia? Okay. Taking off, everyone. Yeah, I need to get going soon, too. I'm gratified that everyone's had a good time and that I was talking. I'm missing the big point. He didn't sit on the stuff in the U.S. He gave it to a UK journalist, then fled to Russia. I do get that point. Maybe I'm just dull-headed enough not to understand how it's that different. I mean, I would suggest maybe he would have turned it in to an American journalist if the journalists here weren't all in bed with the deep state. But it's not a bad point, and it is a big point. But there was a time when the media spoke truth to power. Now, not so much. And I would suggest, without meaning to be mean, that Russia probably has as many NSA secrets as they need to have. See you on the next stream. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to call it a stream. So let's get the music going. I would like to thank everybody in the chat for their great ideas and good points. We started with Putin's cats. Thank you very much for showing up and making good points. I know I didn't agree with all of them, but they were all valid. They all need to be thought about and considered. Matt Cheatwood, as always, Enigma Severus, JPRPH1, Mikey, Susie 4. I know I'm missing Connie Cleary. Thank you so much for showing up and being supportive for as long as you could. I hope it was at least educational. I know there's some really bright people here, so maybe not much was learned, but hopefully there was some learning, maybe there was some thought, maybe there was some vague entertainment. And thank you, JPRPH1. I think that we had a good debate. I hope I didn't manhandle too much, but I think we did good. Whether we all came to agree with each other, I hope that we all agree. We want the Republic. We want it to be strong. We want it to continue. And that's the main thing. And Enigma Severus, sorry, had to use the restroom. All right. Well, I am going to call it a stream. Just remember, my friends, I am Swiss. It's my intent, for good or ill. Enigma Severus, we love you too. Hope everyone can enjoy the present. Don't be too concerned about the future. That's a great point. That may be the best point that anyone's made in the chat. And there were a lot of good points. So, thank you, everyone. Just remember, you are not going mad. You're going sane in a world gone mad. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.